Mafia boss licks his wounds as cops find his brother in a basement. This mafia boss's brother had been working for the police the whole time. The man's name was Frank Thierry, 62 years old, and he had been one of the top leaders of the Genovese crime family. He ran the family business alongside his brother Gregory, and they were doing so well that it seemed like nothing could take them down. But they were wrong. They were caught completely off guard when federal agents raided their headquarters. They found guns, drugs, money, everything you would expect to find in the headquarters of a mafia family. At that point, both brothers were arrested and sent to jail. Frank was given a 10-year sentence while his brother was only given 3 years. Why the difference? Well, it wasn't because Frank had more power than his brother. It was because Frank had actually been working for the cops the whole time. When the feds raided the headquarters, they found computers, phones, and documents that showed that the men had been communicating with several high-ranking members of the New York Police Department. So what was this undercover cop's name? Louis Ippolito. While other people were brought down with the brothers, Ippolito was never caught. Even after Frank was sentenced to prison, Ippolito remained at large. At first, the FBI didn't want to come forward and say that one of the brothers had been working for the police. They didn't want to jeopardize their case against the rest of the mafia bosses. But everyone wanted to know who the mole was. So finally, the FBI revealed all. They told the world that it had been Gregory Thierry, not Frank. And that's not all. The FBI also admitted that they had recruited Gregory back in 1980. That means he must have been working as a mole for over 40 years. The question is, why did he do it? What made him betray his own blood? Some said he hated his older brother. Others said he liked living a life of luxury and wanted to make sure he didn't go to jail. Whatever the reason, he kept his mouth shut for decades, even when his brother was arrested and sent to prison. So how did the FBI find him? Well, it started with a phone call. In September 2005, an agent called a number in the Bronx. The number was registered to Frank Thierry, but the person who picked up the phone was not Frank. It was his brother Gregory. This was just a normal conversation between the brothers. They talked about everyday things. They asked each other how the kids were doing and what they were up to. But to the FBI, every word was like gold. The first thing they noticed was that Gregory sounded healthy, yet he should have been sick from cancer. See, for months earlier, Gregory had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and given only 6 months to live. But when the FBI listened to the tape, he didn't sound like a dying man at all. He sounded full of energy and life. So the FBI knew right then that something was up. Gregory was faking his illness. Thought if he pretended to have cancer, no one would suspect that he was working as a police informant. They kept tabs on him for weeks, and they heard him talking about meeting people at various locations around the city. Soon, they had enough evidence to get a warrant and search his house. What they found shocked them. Inside his home, they found 300 grand in cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and watches, plus weapons like grenades, shotguns, and handguns. But that still wasn't enough proof. The FBI needed something concrete to show that he was working with the mob. And they got exactly what they needed when they searched his basement. Down there, they found 3 men. These men weren't just random people. They were high-ranking members of the Mafia. One of them was Anthony Casso, a captain in the Luces crime family. Another was Matthew Madonna, a capo in the Colombo crime family. And the last was John Gotti, a soldier in the Gambino crime family. The FBI knew right then that they had caught a big fish. They had found the biggest mafia mole in history. But how did these men end up in Gregory's basement? Well, it turns out that he had been running an illegal gambling ring and had kidnapped 3 men in order to collect debts. He thought he was being so clever, but the FBI had been watching him the whole time. They already knew about the gambling ring and were prepared to make a move. When they found the 3 men in the basement, Gregory was arrested and taken to an interrogation room. He tried to keep his cool, but when the FBI told him what they had found, he broke down. He confessed everything. He had told the FBI how he had been working for them since 1980. He had told them how he had become a police officer and had used his position to help the Mafia. He even told them where some of the Mafia's biggest hideouts were. The FBI was ecstatic. They had gotten more information in a few hours than they had in years. They thanked Gregory and let him go. But they had no idea that he had one more trick up his sleeve. A few days later, the FBI announced that they had arrested Gregory Thierry, the Mafia mole. They gave a press conference and told reporters all about his crimes. They even showed pictures of him in his luxurious lifestyle. But Gregory was nowhere to be seen. It turned out that he had skipped bail and fled to Italy. He thought he could live out the rest of his life in luxury in Europe, but the FBI wasn't having it. They put out an arrest warrant and Interpol got involved. Soon, every country in the world was looking for Gregory, but it didn't take long for him to be caught. Just a few weeks later, he was arrested at an airport in Milan. He had tried to bribe the police to let him go, but they weren't having it. They took him to the nearest jail and waited for the FBI to come pick him up. Soon as Gregory was brought to the U.S., he was put on trial. He was charged with racketeering, extortion, and gambling, but the charges didn't stick. You see, Gregory had made a deal with the FBI. He had agreed to testify against the Mafia bosses in exchange for a lighter sentence. But the FBI had broken their deal. It had leaked information about Gregory to the press, and that put him in danger. Gregory's lawyer argued that he couldn't testify if he was in danger. The judge agreed and threw out the charges. Gregory was free. He had betrayed the Mafia and the FBI and won. But his life was far from over. In 2013, he published a book about his life as a Mafia mole. The book was called My Life as a Mafia Mole, and it became an instant bestseller. Then in 2014, a movie was made about his life. The movie was called Gotti, and it starred John Travolta as John Gotti and P.J. Byrne as Gregory Tiari. Today, Gregory lives in a small town in New Jersey. He's in his 70s now and doesn't look anything like the flashy gangster from the movies. He spends his days fishing and gardening and his nights playing cards with his friends. He's never spoken publicly about his time in the Mafia or with the FBI. But every once in a while, a reporter will track him down and ask him a few questions. And every time he gives the same answer. He says, "I'm just a retired guy trying to live his life." Now check out Mafia boss discovers he was being betrayed by his own daughter. Or check out Undercover Cop who double-crossed the Mafia.